office. I specifically made a point here on Birds 365 last week to give Eagle Nation credit, because despite the fact that Davante Adams came out and openly questioned the direction of the Raiders and the type of offense they're going to run, and
are you going DeAndre Hopkins on me? Yeah.
Oh, that's exactly where I'm going. There wasn't this let's get Davante Adams. Eagles could use Davante Adams. We could be great with Davante Adams. Anytime a big name player is unhappy, becomes available, whatever. Eagles. I get it from an Eagles standpoint. You want all the best players. You want the best player at every position for the Philadelphia. It doesn't work that way in a cap league. But I was proud of Eagle fans that they didn't go over the top and bring Davante Adams to us, either here on the stream or on my telephone lines or on my social media. Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins yesterday said that Jalen Hurts is a baller. I would not mind playing with Jalen Hurts. And I got a couple of tweets last night that wanted to know my opinion on could the Eagles get DeAndre Hopkins. Sure enough, we had someone just K Rowley X26. If the Eagles trade for Hopkins, they'd be unstoppable. I give credit last week when the Davante Adams stuff didn't come in. Yeah, they're not getting DeAndre Hopkins. Don't go there, people, please. No. It's not happening. He's not coming here, although the Eagles do value that position, unlike some other positions on the field. They've already invested a lot of money in A.J. Brown. They're going to have to invest that much more in Devontae Smith soon enough. DeAndre Hopkins is not coming to the Philadelphia Eagles.
No, this is a 5-time, I had to look it up, 5-time All-Pro receiver, not Pro Bowl, All-Pro receiver. This is he's had some injury problems over the past couple of years. He's post 30, very expensive, expects the football. This is where I think video games have destroyed fantasy football, whatever you want to blame it on. I think really when it comes to roster building, and I'm not everybody, but there's a lot of people, there is a science to it, and there are roles to it. And you need role players. You can't just put together the best 3 receivers and say they're going to be unstoppable. Now, what they're going to be is pissed off because they want the football, but so-and-so is getting the football, and you got to have a demarket. Like, who's getting the football? That's unstoppable. I got news for you. DeAndre Hopkins is more proven than both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Are you going to make DeAndre number 1? You think AJ is going to be happy with that? You think Devontae's going to be happy being number 3, being the Quez Watkins of this offense? And you could say, well, DeAndre's been hurt, so let's make him number 3. Oh, yeah, he'll love that.
Yeah.
The 5-time. Hey, we're going to throw it to you twice a game, DeAndre. Enjoy that. Boy, I don't know why. It seems simple to me, but I guess it's not that simple.
Yeah,
I don't know.
John, you describe it. It's the video game mentality. It's the fantasy football mentality. You want to get the best of every single player and put them on your team. Well, here's the problem with your fantasy team. You've got players from all these different teams who compile stats. Now you want to bring them all together and put them on the same team. Putting them all on your fantasy team is different than putting them on an actual football team that has to go out there and share the football. That's why DeAndre Hopkins is not going to work here in Philadelphia. We got a bunch of people checking in on that. Just thought we needed to break it down a little bit and say, don't get mad at Howie Roseman. How did Howie not get, when DeAndre Hopkins gets traded, don't get on Howie's case and go, how did Howie let him get to the whatever team he ends up? No, he's not a fit here in Philadelphia. He's not going to be coming here anytime soon. So just I'm trying to cut you off at the pass there, Eagle fans, who will be upset when DeAndre Hopkins moves. I saw a quote from Jonathan Gannon. He says, he's perfectly fine with DeAndre Hopkins. Come to camp, don't come to camp, going to be fine. The first couple of months of his tenure as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, not gone swimmingly for Jonathan Gannon, J-Mac.
No, certainly, but not from that perspective. I think that, if you think about where Nick Sirianni was when he was a first-time head coach, right? Same thing. We were talking about it post-pandemic. He's negotiating with the veteran players. Will you please come in for the off-season work? I mean, you don't have a lot of cachet. Um, and that's where he is with DeAndre Hopkins. And by the way, a veteran player like that doesn't need off-season work. He keeps himself in shape. Anybody who sees DeAndre, back on Hard Knocks back in the day, he's in tremendous physical condition. Um, yeah, I mean, you have a rookie head coach, veteran player. You kind of, from his perspective, he's just crossing his fingers and hopes they could work it out and keep him. Because they don't have a lot of talent. That's one of the reasons why he probably wants out of there. But yeah, I don't think off-season work is all that important as somebody of DeAndre Hopkins' status, to be honest.
That I would agree with. But and like you said, he's five-time All-Pro. His level of resume has been stated, and he's got a good couple of years now in that Cardinal clubhouse. When you're a new coach, we all know that different level players are given different dispensations. Oh, by the way, you don't have to look any further than Philadelphia with veteran practice days being able to be skipped. Oh, everybody in the league does it. But when you're the new coach, when you're coming in, you're trying to rally everybody together. You don't want that disparity of how ways and how to what lengths different people are treated. You're hoping to have at least an underlaying of everybody's the same. It's difficult to pull off because that's just the way the league works now. Different players are treated differently. If DeAndre Hopkins is going to be given carte blanche to practice or not practice whenever he wants, you got a quarterback who's injured, who has shown at times not complete dedication to the game. Jonathan Gannon's walking into a tough spot. And they're a bad football team. That's probably, I kind of buried the lead there. And they're a bad football team. Not going to be easy for Jonathan Gannon here in year number one, John.
No, and I think it has more to do with the talent than the other stuff. I mean, I always subscribe to the Jimmy Johnson theory, and this is Jimmy back with the Cowboys, not the Dolphins. So we're talking whatever that was, early 90s, late, I quote always stuck with me when he was talking to his players. I'll treat you all fairly, but I'm not going to treat you all the same. And he was essentially saying, hey, Emmitt Smith over there, Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, they get longer ropes, but as long as you treat people fairly, I think you're okay as a head coach. But that's just part of it. I don't know how you get around that. We always talk about voluntary work in this league. Oh, it's not voluntary for certain players. It's voluntary for stars because there's nothing you can do about it. Like Aaron Rodgers, that's a big deal showing up for the Jets because he never showed up for the Packers. But he's trying to put a good foot forward. And if he plays next year with the Jets, I guarantee he's not going to be at off-season work next year. And he doesn't need it. Now, maybe you could argue some of the receivers. I think quarterbacks should be in, by the way, even veteran quarterbacks, because they're different. So I've criticized Aaron for that in the past in Green Bay. But, if you're a guy, if you're the 53rd guy on the roster, you think off-season work is voluntary, Jody? It ain't voluntary. You're off. If you don't show up and you're toggling at the back end of the roster, hey, get out of here. It's not voluntary for those guys.
Exactly. Been nice knowing you. And you mentioned 53rd guy on the roster. So my last question before we punch Ed Kratz up. The emergency quarterback thing. They put it back into the NFL. It needs to be guy on the 53-man roster. And then you get a 46th active player, but he's got to be on the 53 to begin with. Does that mean that
47, isn't it?
What's that?
We're already at 46. I think this bumps it up to 47.
Okay, so they stretch it to 46. That makes it 47. How many inactives were there each week this year?
Depends on how many healthy players.
What was it again? Sermon, who and who?
Yeah, the book of Sermon. Who was the third one? We'll have to get Ed Kratz up there, but
Kratz, you'll know
yeah.
it. But yeah, only if you keep adding.
Josh Job. The book of Job.
Job and
the
sermon
yes. From the book of Job. There we go.
That was the Eagles inactives most of the weeks this year. Do you believe their third string quarterback, their emergency quarterback, will be off and on the 53-man roster this year?
Oh, it has to be. It has to be.
No, you don't have to have an emergency quarterback.
No, you don't have to have. But the Eagles, I mean, to have an emergency quarterback, he's got to be on the 50.
Right. So my question to you is, will they have their third string quarterback as one of their 53?
The Eagles typically want to keep three quarterbacks. They're one of the teams that wants to keep three quarterbacks, likes keeping three quarterbacks. And if they don't have three quarterbacks, it's usually because the third quarterback is pretty bad. But they want to keep, and before this rule, they wanted to keep three quarterbacks. I mean, they kept Ian Book last year. They're gonna keep three quarterbacks and take advantage of this rule. And I think they should. I think that's the way to go. 2011, and we got to get to Ed Kratz. We'll talk about this with Ed. So let's break now and sort of get to it with Ed. But they're going to use three quarterbacks, no question about it.
Yeah, they did have Book as the book of Sermon of Job as their inactives this year. I know you guys had fun with that on a week in, week out basis. All right, we always have fun when we punch up. Ed Kratz, been a couple of weeks. He was on vacay. He looks rested, relaxed. No, he doesn't. He looks like Ed Kratz. And he'll come back and join Mac and Mac next here on Birds 365.
Weather forecast.